Hi class, I wanted to go ahead and show you how I would do my keystrokes for this first example so you can kind of watch me do a little formatting in Excel and maybe see if this will help you do your Excel formulas. Okay, so I'm going to be working through this very first problem here, the compound interest formula. This is an example, so this is filled in on your template, and I'm going to kind of show you how I would go to fill it in if I were trying to complete this problem. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in our principal, our rate, our number of compoundings, and our time. I did go ahead and keep the variables here with P equals question mark, R equals question mark. This is a format you can use to define your variables. Other ways I've seen people do it is they'll put P equal principal value, R equals rate, N equals number of compoundings, T equals time. That's another way to do it as well, if that helps you kind of remember what your variables are representing. So there are alternatives to this. This is kind of the standard format that we set it up as. Okay, so our sample problem, we read through this. An initial balance of $4,000 grows at a rate of 12.3% compounded quarterly. What is the balance after 5 years? Okay, so this $4,000, that's what we're starting with. That is our principal value. So I'm going to type that in here as 4,000, and I want to make sure this is money. So I'm going to go up here in the very middle up here, and I'm going to change it from general to currency. And then see when I do that, it'll input the dollar sign, and it'll input those 2 decimal places for currency. The rate, we have our rate of 12.3%. There are 2 ways you can type in rate. One way you can do it is on your keyboard, you can type 12.3 and then put a % sign and hit enter. When you do that, you'll notice up here, our format does change it to percentage. Now let's say we typed it in a different way. The other way you can do this is, let me change the cell back to general so we can see how this works. The other way you can do a percentage is you can type it in as a decimal form. So I can type it in as 0.123. And then what I can do is I can change this to a percentage. So I can go down here, change it to percentage, and then it will change it to 12.30%. So 2 different ways to do percentage. You either type it in with your % symbol or type it in as a decimal and then format it as a percentage. Do not type in 12.3 and then change it to percentage using the drop-down menu up here, because that will give you way too many. It'll multiply it by 100 and that will give you too big of a number. It will no longer be the correct percentage. So just be careful of that. N is the number of compoundings per year. Since we're compounding quarterly, that would be 4. And that stays as a number, so we can keep that in general. And then same thing with time. We're looking after 5 years, so we'll put a T for 5. Okay, so now let's do our formula. In this gray cell, you'll see the formula we want to follow. We have P times 1 plus R over N raised to the N times T. We are going to input this into our yellow cell down here, and we're going to use an Excel formula, and we're going to reference all of those values in the green cell. So to start with, in our Excel formula, we always start with an equal sign. If you do not do an equal sign, it will not do the calculation for you. It'll just output that formula you typed in. There are 2 different ways to do this, and I will go over both ways that you could type in an Excel formula. The first way is type everything out on your keyboard. So you can type in the name of the cells. The second way is that you can actually click on the cell and it'll input the name of the cell in. So I'm going to start by typing everything out on my keyboard, and then I'll go through it again where I click on the different cells and do it that way. One thing you have to be very careful of is once you type this equal sign in, Excel is trying to input a formula. So you cannot click on anything unless you want to put it into your formula. So for example, if I click on this cell here, see how it puts in E16. So be very careful where you're clicking when you are doing Excel formulas. Okay, we got our equal sign in there. Now we need to do equals P. My P is sitting down here in cell A17. So I'm going to type A17. And then looking at our formula now, we have P times. I'm going to put in my times, open parenthesis, 1 plus. Now we need to do R divided by N. R is sitting in cell B17. So I'll type B17. I'll do a division symbol on my keyboard, And then N is sitting in cell C17. So then I type C17. And then I need to close the parentheses according to our formula. And then on our formula, after we do the 1 plus R over N, we're going to do our little caret key on our keyboard. And then we're going to open our parentheses. And then we are going to take N times T. Our N is again sitting in cell C17. So then we'll type in C17. We'll do a multiplication symbol on our keyboard, which is sitting above that 8. And then we need to multiply this by our time. Our time is sitting here in cell D17. So we'll multiply by D17 and then close off the parentheses and hit enter. And there we've got our value. And so my output of this cell is that 7,330.39. If I click on this cell up here, you can see my formula that's entered in, and then you can see all of the cells that are being referenced into the formula. Okay, so now let's say you want to do this a different way. So let's go over the second way to do it. So let me get rid of this, clear it out. Let's do it again. Okay, so now let's say you don't want to have to sit there and type all of the names of the cells. So you can reference a cell by clicking on the cell while you are inputting in your formula. So we'll start with an equal sign. And again, I'm going to follow the same formula that's sitting in cells AB13. First thing I need to do is I need to put my P in there. So my P is this $4,000. So I'm going to click on that 4,000 and then see how it auto-populates into my formula here. So I clicked on cell A17 and then it put A17 in there. Next, we need to do times, open parentheses, times, open parentheses. This I am typing on my keyboard. And I'll do 1 plus, again, typing on my keyboard. Now I need to do R divided by N. So I'm going to click on R. I'm going to type the division symbol on my keyboard. And then I'm going to click on N. And then I need to close the parentheses. So I will type the close parenthesis on my keyboard. And then after that close parenthesis, we have the caret key and then open parenthesis. So I will type that on my keyboard again. And now we're going to take N times T. So I'll take N, click on that value of 4. I clicked on it. I'm typing my times, and then I'm going to click on the 5. And then the very last thing I need to do is I need to close that last parenthesis. So on my keyboard, I will type that close parenthesis, and then on my keyboard, I hit enter. And again, it has typed out that formula for us, and it has done the same thing. So there are 2 ways you can input a formula. You can type it all by hand, or if you don't want to type out those cell names, you can click on the cell and then it'll input the name in there for you. Just be careful of where you click. If you have that equal sign and then you're still typing in that cell, anywhere you click, Excel will input that in there for you. So just be very careful of where you're clicking. A couple other things to note is that if there is something weird with your formula, if Excel thinks it's weird, it will give you an error, and then it'll kind of give you a recommendation on how to fix this error. So let's say I went and typed this in and I didn't close my last parenthesis. I hit enter. Excel is going to pop up with this, oh no, you found a typo in a formula. Do we want to correct it? I look at this, I check to see if it's matching what I want. It is, so I'm going to hit yes. Other times you could see a little error sign that pops up next to your cell. So if you do see that, you can click on it and Excel will give you a recommendation of how to adjust. And then one last thing I do want to talk about is that when you do still have this in Excel formula, you can change the format of the cell. So I clicked on this. I have my formula entered. I have my calculation of that 7,330.39, but it's all entered in as my formula. So if this was supposed to be a number, I could go up here and I can change it to general and it'll change it back to a number. Or I can go up here and I can change it to a percentage if I wanted to. I'm going to change it back to currency because this number should be a currency. And then these buttons here, these can change my number of decimal points. So if I want to add more, I can add more. If I want to take some away, I can take some away. So that's working through the very first problem. This is the same idea that what you want to do on the rest of them. Just make sure you are following the correct formula. So on the next problem, you're going to follow this formula here. It's a little more complicated. And then your next one, you have the formula here. And your very last one, you have the IR formula down here. Make sure you always put in your parentheses. Make sure you always put in your operations. So multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Excel does not like it if you forget the operations. So do keep those kinds of things in mind. And let me know if you have any questions after watching this.